And hello, once again, this is Ted Hicks from Late Night Parents. Ways to follow the show, latenightparents.com, or you can, for those of you that are kind of lazy, you can go to lnp.tv. And yeah, you can get to the website also. On the website, you will find the Twitter handle, the Facebook feed, and the most important thing is our blogs and podcasts. And if you happen to be on the site during a live podcast, you can hear the live podcast by going to latenightparents.com. There's a little widget on the right-hand side. You'll see that it's live. You click on it, you'll hear me live. All right, so with that, much to do. It's Easter weekend. A lot of things are going on. I would say it's a big sports weekend with the Final Four. You got a great boxing match coming up. We've got hockey. Baseball is back. You got, the NFL. I mean, excuse me, not NFL. Well, NFL is 24/7, but we've got NBA and NHL prepping for the playoffs. So, but with that, we have going on the Masters. So this is more on the lines of Ask the Expert. We like to do the Ask the Expert. Get your Masters master with Todd Bascom. So for an inside report on the golf industry trends, we turn to my good friend, sports aficionado and golfer, Todd Bascom, to ask about everything from the impact of fantasy games to who will don the green jacket this year. And without further ado, Todd Bascom. Todd, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Thanks for taking a few minutes out to do this podcast. I think you and I, it's been a while since you and I have been on the links, but I tell you, it's been great. I know you've been out there a lot more than I have been. I went out there once last summer. How about yourself?
Well, you know how it is when you have kids. You don't get out there near as much as you might like. So
that is true.
It's not like the good old days in my early 20s when I was playing 4 rounds a week. But I get out there when I can.
Got you.
Storm playing USA was awesome.
And the best thing about live radio, a live podcast, you can make a mistake at any given time. So I have some Masters tournaments fun facts. The Masters golf's first major championship of the year. It begins on April 5th. So you got to get yourself in the mood for birdies and a whole lot of greens with this fun facts report I'm going to read. The report breaks down everything from ticket and concession prices to the cost of producing each green jacket overall. And we've also, we can also find a few handful of highlights on latenightparents.com. But Todd, I'm going to start off by this and saying 250,000 people are expected to visit Augusta, GA area each year for the Masters festivities. Do you have any tips for hitting the links without breaking the bank?
Yeah. It depends on, we're talking about the beginning golfer?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
I'm talking about the beginning golfer, not the Masters.
Right. Well, yeah, there's a lot of tips I could give someone just starting out that will save you some money. The first thing I would say is that don't get roped into the equipment. You're going to see a lot of advertising, things like that, especially if you're just starting out. And the advertising is going to promise you that you're going to hit the ball further and straighter and longer and all of these things. And that is not what you probably need to focus on as a beginning golfer. So I would say first tip number 1 would be you don't spend a lot of money on equipment right away. You can get a starter set of golf clubs for around $200. You don't have to go out and buy expensive balls, anything like that. Because what your focus should be as a beginner is just learning how to hit the ball straight, how to get it in the air, and how to just kind of learn the fundamental swing. And no equipment that you buy, no matter how much you spend, is going to give you that. So that'd be the first tip. The second tip I just kind of got into was what your focus should be. Just making solid contact with the ball, hitting it straight. Don't get, we all watch golf and the focus is, how far did he put that drive out there? 300 and something yards. The last thing a beginner should be focusing on. You can be just as successful on the golf course hitting it 200 yards off the tee as long as you hit it straight. So that's second tip. The third tip, especially for beginners not wanting to break the bank, find your local public course, and you can get a lot of good deals on green fees. For example, Ted, you probably know your local course or whatever.
Yes.
Like they'll offer you a discount if you play like after 4 p.m.
Correct.
Or something like that. So, you can get out there. You can get out there after work or something and just go play 9 holes. And it won't cost you very much at all. Probably maybe around $15 a lot of places.
That's true.
So you can do that. Also, you can find your local, you can find a par 3 course near you. And they also tend to be cheaper. The good thing about those courses is that you can concentrate on those things I was talking about, where you're just learning how to get the ball in the air, how to hit it straight, using your short irons, which tend to be the more forgiving clubs. So if you can just get those fundamentals down with those type of clubs, it will help you as you advance in your ability when you start to learn how to work the ball from left to right, or learning how to put spin on it and things like that. And the last tip I would have for the beginner, if you really want to, if you feel like you want to be serious about the game, is to go and get lessons. So what you're going to do is ask me, well, how does that not break the bank? And my response to that would be, it doesn't cost a lot. Like if you go to your local driving range, you can get lessons from the club pro there for not a lot of money. I don't know what they cost, and then even you can go on Groupon or something, and you might be able to get a little package. All you really need to learn is just the fundamentals of that swing. And you don't need a ton of lessons to just give you that. My dad, who got me into the game, always used to tell me that. He said, if you're going to be serious about this game, you got to go and get proper instruction, which I never did. I'm entirely self-taught. And what I learned by that is that my natural ability was only going to take me so far. So if you really want to be serious about the game, you should go out and get those lessons. And you really don't have to spend as much as you might think to get that fundamental base for a golf swing. So that would be the tips I'd have for the beginner.
And this is Ted Hicks once again on Late Night Parents. This is your Ask the Expert podcast on the Masters, and it's being brought to you by Todd Bascom. You can find him on Twitter. He's a great follow at Todd, TODDBASCOM. Todd, you were one of the first people to help introduce me to the world of golf. I still have my starter set, believe it or not. I haven't graduated from that, and I'm not sure if and when I will, but if my wife is listening to this podcast on an archive, I mean, I think it'd be a great gift to get a set of golf clubs for Father's Day. With I will tell you this much: you hit upon something really important, and it's something that I don't do as much as I did a few years ago. I would go to the golf range after work. I would keep the clubs in the car, get off the train, keep my shoes in there, and during the spring/summer months, go straight to the range at Eisenhower Park. Because I think, for one, and me, I'm a novice, but you got to get to understand what you're doing. I mean, number one, that's where you can get your training. Whether or not you can get an instructor or not, that's another deal, without breaking the bank. But you want to know, how are you swinging? Is your swing correct? Or is there things that are currently not correct in the mechanics of your swing? So we're not, chances are, folks, you won't have Hank Haney as a trainer, but you're gonna have, you should be able to find someone at your local golf course or someone in a Penny Saver or something like that. But I wanted to. Were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to mention a couple of other fun facts for the Masters. Now, get this. The price of a domestic beer at the Masters, $4. I'm like, huh?
$4?
$4.
That's it?
That's it. That's what I'm being told here.
But are we talking a normal 12-ounce beer, or like it's a little Dixie cup?
I'm thinking it's a Dixie cup. The price of, it says 90% of all the world's golf carts are made in Georgia. I said, okay. $2,100 is the average resale price for a ticket to the final round of the 2018 Masters. And currently, that's the cheapest of the 4 days. And
the final round is the cheapest?
The average resale price is $2,100, and that's currently the cheapest of the 4 days that you're there. And I'm like, wouldn't that be the opposite?
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so.
We're getting these facts from our friends at Wallet Hub. What else? It says 640%. That's the increase in live telecast hours for the Masters from 1956. That was 2.5 hours, to 2018, which is 18.5 hours. Okay, I guess I can roll with that. My next question for you is: should communities invest in building or rehabbing golf courses? Why or why not?
Well, I guess the answer to that really is relative. Should the town of Greenwich, Connecticut do that? I would say yes. Should the South Bronx do it? Probably not. Although the South Bronx is probably becoming gentrified now. But you see my point.
Yes.
It really, you have to be practical about it, I think. I guess you could argue that no community really needs to do it. As a practical matter, I think that for me, it would be more about what I like about golf in a lot of ways is that you know how you and I grew up together.
Correct.
You know the kind of environment we grew up in. Urban, concrete everywhere. And for me, it was nice to be on a golf course. To be out there in nature, kind of. So I like the idea of rehabbing and preserving golf courses as kind of that open space, green type of area. So I like that aspect of it. And I suppose that adds value to a community. I don't see any other practical reason for doing it unless there's a great demand for golf in that particular community. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it really depends on what it is that your community goals are.
Gotcha.
And, certain communities, you could very easily argue that shouldn't be a priority. And others, maybe it is. And that's how you have to base those judgments, I think.
Gotcha. I just think it comes down to rural, urban, suburbs.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on exactly that. Like where you are, what are the needs and demands of your community, and that to me would pretty much kind of dictate where you put your resources. And another interesting thing, another trend I've noticed in golf as well, is that, and this actually, this started a long time ago, I think. For example, the New York City courses, the public courses that I grew up playing on, like Forest Park and Casino Park and all of those courses, and even Douglaston and Clearview. What I remember probably started in the 90s is what you had private management come in for these public courses. And it's, I guess we could compare it to the political issue of privatization of public stuff.
Okay.
And whether or not it makes sense. For example, the recent controversy with the Veterans Affairs Secretary, the outgoing Veterans Affairs Secretary, is he was fighting against the privatization of medical care for veterans.
Correct.
So I think I'm a veteran, and I think a lot of veterans would agree with me that that's probably not a good idea from a cost standpoint. Although you could also make the argument that it might be good as far as getting people access to healthcare. And I don't really want to argue that. I'm just using it as an example of there are some things that privatization is probably better suited for. And I think that when the city of New York brought in these private companies to manage these public courses, the courses got better. Like when I was a kid playing Forest Park, it was a hole. It was a dump. And then when the private company came in to manage the course, I think if you go to Forest Park now, it's a nice little course. And it's kept in good shape. It's well maintained. So I think my point by telling this story is that I don't even think that it's necessary to have the community itself invest in the local courses. This can be managed privately through public entities. And I think it's met with a lot of success in a lot of places. So I like that idea better than having the actual community or public entities invest directly. They can bring in private entities to do that, and they turn out probably better than the city or the municipalities ever could do.
As you know, Todd, and you used to be one before you moved away, a resident of Nassau County, and we had that option posed to us several years ago. I think around the 2013, 2014 timeline when we were posed, the proposal was, or the referendum was, do we want to increase our taxes by $58 per year to cover the cost of a new Coliseum? And it was, the idea was shot down 2-1 by the voters.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the reason why The Islanders will be playing in Belmont after the failed experiment at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. And we have a retrofitted Coliseum that will have monster trucks and Walt Disney and no professional sports team. So I'm not sure how that worked out, but I'll leave it there.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, well, and to your point, if you can't even get that done publicly, I doubt. I think the golf course issue would be even more of a non-starter.
Right.
Because it's so, yeah. So that makes sense.
So this podcast, we call it The Masters because I brought in the expert, Todd Bascom. You can find him on Twitter at TODDBASCOM. But now it's time to briefly talk about potentially return of the Master. You know, Tiger Woods has had a career PGA Tour, 79 career PGA Tour wins, 14 championships, which is 4 shy of Jack Nicklaus's all-time record. It's been 7,665 days since Tiger Woods won his first Masters, 4,746 days since his last Masters win, 1,708 days since his last PGA Tour win, and 3,583 days since Tiger's last major championship. Between 2010 and 2016, Tiger's annual endorsements have decreased $25 million. But overall, Tiger's increase in net worth from 2010 to 2016 is $335 million. So Tiger, as we know it, is 42 years old. Everyone's, charged up. I'm guessing the ratings are going to be popping because Tiger is back. So the question I have for you is, what are the biggest issues facing the sport of golf today?
Well, my answer to that would be similar to my last answer, which would be to say that it's probably relative. Golf is what I like to call a quote-unquote elite sport. And by that I mean traditionally, and Tiger changed that a little bit, but traditionally golf is played by a certain demographic. What are we talking about here? If we just say what it is, it's played by white men for the most part that are well-to-do generally, or you could call them rich or whatever you want to call them. To that class of people, that tradition, there are no issues facing golf. They're going to play golf, they're going to watch golf, and that's the end of that. But if you're talking about what are the issues facing golf as a media spectacle, which I suspect that's more where your question is geared. Am I right?
You're correct.
Okay, so bottom line is, one, Tiger moves the dial. So, and by that I mean you need these personalities, you need these players, you need rivalries, and golf. When Tiger was at his most dominant, it was, everyone's tuning in to see, it's old Tiger or the field, and everybody was tuning in to see that. And then when he waned a little bit, you didn't have that anymore. And you also had a rivalry with him and Phil Mickelson. so to speak, Tiger versus Phil. And you had that with Jack Nicholson when he was around, and Arnold Palmer and Lee Trevino and those guys that I used to watch when I was a kid to tune in to see how they were going to duke it out on the last back nine in the final round in the Masters. And I think the biggest issue facing golf as a media spectacle right now, or in the years leading up to now when Tiger had his injury issues, was, well, golf doesn't give you that reason to watch. It doesn't give the reason for the casual fan to, like, I'm going to watch the Masters. That's just, I'm going to watch it. And it doesn't matter who's there or who's playing, or I'm just probably going to watch the Masters. But that casual fan needs that draw. And golf just hasn't had that recently. So maybe that'll change. You've got some very good young players now. Tiger looks like he's probably got his health straightened out. So it'll be, I think it probably is just going to get fun for people to watch again. And if they can do that, then golf will be fine until hopefully you get that next crop of stars to keep that going. But I think so to answer your question, the biggest issue is, are we going to have that draw for the casual fan? So that question remains to be, that answer, we'll see what happens. But
all right.
Looks like it's heading in a good direction right now.
All right. I will say this much in our fun facts segment. 6 golfers that are 40 plus have won the Masters. Ben Hogan, Sam Snead, Gary Player, Mark O'Meara, Ben Crenshaw, and of course, the Golden Bear, Jack Nicklaus. He won it in 1986 at the age of 46. So, is there a chance for Tiger? Yeah, there is. Is it this year? I don't know. We shall see. So, want to get into a question, and I'm not sure if this is your expertise or not, but I'm going to throw it out there. Fantasy golf seems to be gaining traction. I mean, I think all of fantasy sports have gained traction, with fantasy football leading the way. But fantasy golf seems to be gaining traction. What impact do you think it will have on the sport? Will it have the same effect as fantasy football or fantasy basketball?
The short answer to that is no. Fantasy golf, fantasy football is easy.
Yes.
Right? You don't have to know anything about football. It's a basic, I got to score more points than the other guy. I don't know much about fantasy golf, but and if you probably are more familiar with it than I am, but I think that it's a little more complicated than that.
Yes.
And I suspect that you probably have to know a little something about the sport. So like I can get, I mean, it may be a little bit of an unfair comparison because my wife is actually a football fan and she understands football, but let's just use your wife as an example.
Okay.
When I say I just mean the general public's wife, right?
Okay.
She can go and play fantasy football.
Wow.
Because it's just about, well, I got this guy and who scores more points than everyone else.
Okay.
It's that simple. With golf, it's kind of, and so we can get that casual fan in there and everyone buys boxes for the Super Bowl, right?
Of course.
So I think with golf, the only people playing fantasy golf are hardcore golf fans or degenerate gamblers, I guess. I don't know. But no, I don't think fantasy will have a big impact on golf or its popularity, or it's just not fantasy friendly. And I think you have to understand a lot more about the game than you do about something like fantasy baseball or football or basketball or even fantasy hockey, which requires a little more knowledge of the game than the others, but still, I don't think it'll have much impact on the sport's popularity at all.
Okay. Last fun fact is 107. If I say $174.9 billion, that's the combined net worth of Augusta's two richest members, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. That's a whole lot of cash right there.
That's a lot of money.
I do want to digress for a second and go back to your fantasy sports answer. I will say this much. I think the absolutely worst sport to play in fantasy is fantasy baseball because it's way too much work compared to to fantasy.
We got football. A game every day, and no, I agree. Yep.
I did that one year, Todd, and I was like, towards the middle of the season, I was like, I will never do this again.
Same thing happened to me. I did it once, and that was, I didn't make it through the season. It was terrible. It was terrible.
It was. And I guess the final fact is, our 34th president, U.S. president, Dwight D. Eisenhower, was the only U.S. president to have been a member. Hang on. And yeah, for the Masters himself, that was a last fact I was trying to pull in. So for the upcoming week, who is your pick to win the 2018 Masters?
All right, so there's two ways of looking at this, in my opinion, since I might fall into that aforementioned degenerate gambler class.
Okay.
I look at this two ways. One, who do I think will win?
Mm-hmm.
And two, who would I actually bet on to win? And I'll explain a little bit about the difference. Who do I think will actually win? For me, and at a course like Augusta, it always depends on for me, it depends a lot on the conditions of the course. So my understanding is that they're expecting some rain in Georgia in the few days leading up to the Masters tournament, which I believe starts this Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
If that is the case, it makes the course soft. And for your listeners that don't know much about golf, basically what that does is it means the ground is soft. When you hit the ball, it doesn't bounce as high. When it hits the ground, it doesn't roll as far. And so the soft conditions, when the condition is soft or wet, favors the longer hitters. If the course stays soft for the tournament, I would pick probably someone like Rory McIlroy to win. He just came off a nice win. He's starting to putt well. Augusta favors a great putter. He's got the distance to deal with the soft course. So if indeed the course is soft based on how he has his current form, I would like him to win. Now, from a betting standpoint, I'm looking for value. I'm looking for who's the guy that I can bet, that I can put my money down on, that might not only have a chance to win, but give me a good return on that investment if he does win. And I looked at the most recent odds before I got on with you. And one thing stuck out to me. I saw Ricky Fowler at 20-1.
Okay.
And I love Ricky Fowler at 20-1 from a value standpoint. So if you're betting, take Ricky Fowler at 20-1. If if you think you want to just pick a winner, I like someone like Rory McIlroy or even Bubba Watson. He's got a green jacket, I believe. He understands the course. His game is well suited for it. So I like one of those two guys to win, given what I expect the conditions on the course to be. So that's where I'd go. But for you degenerate gamblers out there, Ricky Fowler at 20-1 is my man.
Oh my goodness, Todd. As always, got to thank you for taking a few minutes out for this pod. As always, we tap your excellence and your expertise on these types of sports. Definitely want to say thank you and plug your Twitter handle, TODDBASCOM. He's a great follow on Twitter, and want to say thanks again.
Thanks for having me. Always fun. Thanks.